and welcome back to the Pulse with Willie and Al. We got episode number 8 here. This is the Hold On, I'm Talking to America episode. How we doing today, Al?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Wish the Patriots had won, but I think this is going to be a pretty common theme this season. And honestly, I can't be mad about the episode name. I can't. I told you this before we started filming. That's going to live rent free in my brain for a long time.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to live rent free in America's brain for a really long time.
Oh,
It seems every show I'm seeing, whether it's ESPN, all over the place, they're all talking about it. So it's definitely gotten a hold of everybody.
I think what it shows is Belichick has some athletic ability, clearly. So yeah, let him try out for the team, man. He is the GM of it practically, so it's fine.
Absolutely,
It's
man.
fine.
So what do we have on the docket for today, Al?
Oh, we got a ton of stuff. A lot of news. We got game recaps, over under reactions, upsets, great individual performances. Our minivan segment, which I really loved last week.
Yeah.
We're gonna go over fantasy football and baseball this week. Big news on both. And we're gonna preview the Thursday night game, which will be Giants 49ers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's dive right into things. We'll talk about the Minnesota Philly game, which was very interesting last week. We had some interesting predictions for it too. I know I thought it was going to be Philly 35, Minnesota 24. And you said I believe it was going to be Philly 38 and Minnesota 17. So both of us were fairly close. It ended up being 34-28 Philly. There was a lot going on in this game, right? Like I think it actually shook the notion of like the bad Thursday night games for once, which was really nice because like you saw two great offenses go at it. What were your thoughts from the game?
Well, I know that I kept on the Thursday night game, you're obviously in bed and sleeping by the time the game's happening. So I'm just watching it and I'm just texting you as I'm going. And the first half of that game was just, wow, Minnesota looks like trash. And they were down 20 at one point. And then like Kirk Cousins did enough Kirk Cousins things and made it respectable. And like I'm gonna say a thing, that Vikings offense is pretty decent. Like Jordan Addison, I think he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Has another touchdown again this week. Jefferson looked like a monster, like always, including the chain throw, which was incredible. Just threw his chain, and I'm like, wow.
How great was that?
Yeah. But what ultimately I think is going to do Minnesota, like as good as Cousins was, when it mattered the most, didn't make it happen.
Yeah, they couldn't get it done. It's interesting. So obviously I didn't get to watch the game live, like you said, and I had to watch it the next day. But when I woke up the next day, the only thing that they were talking about was not that Philly had won the game or that Minnesota had come back or any of that. It seems like the only thing they were talking about was this argument between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts on the sideline. So what do you make of that?
I'm not going to look too much into it. I think that you know what I mean? It was a close game, a heated game. Like these are two really good teams. I think it was just heat of the moment. That being said, it's not lost on me that Devonta Smith is getting a lot of the targets. And as a guy that has him in fantasy, like I'm reaping the rewards of that right now. And I think there's nothing to worry about with it. But like, I'm interested to see it in another few weeks if this keeps happening where Devonta Smith's getting all the targets and AJ Brown's just not getting as many of them. Does this happen again? Does AJ Brown speak out publicly? I'm very interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I don't. It's weird because they both play the same position, right? AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, but I don't get the diva vibes from Devonta Smith the same way. He just seems like a quiet guy, kind of like a Marvin Harrison type that just goes to work, catches balls. He's a smaller guy and stuff. But I think the big thing on this is, and AJ Brown's getting upset. I understand, he wants his targets. He wants to go out and try to win the game for his team. I get that piece of it. There's so many playmakers on this team that it's okay if he's not getting the targets, but he just doesn't feel that way, right? I even look at the way Jalen Hurts is playing right now. He gets the 2 tush-push touchdowns, which are always awesome. People are up in arms about that rule didn't get banned this year. But, Like, okay, so he's going in there. I just, after 2 weeks, he doesn't look as sharp, I think, as he did last year. And that's a little concerning to me. I wonder if there's that Super Bowl hangover, but I mean, like, is it me that's just seeing this, or are you feeling the same way?
I think it's. I think Jalen Hurts is a victim of his own success, and what I mean by that is like last year he had very few turnovers. He just put up monster numbers, and really, like, if Mahomes didn't have the season he did, he would have been MVP.
Yeah.
So I think that this year, I think it's only natural that he's going to have a few more turnovers, and I think people are going to panic about that. But like overall, like I'm not really worried about it because to be honest with you, he's gonna this team's gonna win 13 games or more. They're probably gonna fight for a 1 seed in the playoffs. They're gonna make a deep playoff run. I mean, where the hangover is concerned is they have been getting hit with a lot of injuries on the defensive side.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I understand that Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson, like that's a good offense, but like giving up 28 to them, like, whew, that
Yeah.
defense doesn't scare me like it did last year. And I know that they're hurt too, but still.
I'm almost seeing a little bit of like what they played like early last year with Philly, in that they go out first half, they just blow it right up, right? They give put a ton of points on the board and everything like that, and then all of a sudden these teams start to creep back into the game, and that's really concerning for me because putting up points is in huge fashion is not an easy thing to do, right? Like, this is the NFL. It's not an easy thing to just score touchdowns in bunches and stuff. I really would like to see them tighten up on defense a little bit. I'm amazed every single time, and I know we were texting back and forth about it, but Jalen Carter, I mean, you saw that like no touch slide off of the center and stuff. I'm amazed at what this kid can do. I really am.
Yeah, I think he is the reason that they're honestly not giving up more points because he's generating enough pressure on the quarterback. And you saw it Thursday too. Like Cousins, there were times where Cousins just didn't have enough time, and that was because of Carter. Like it might not show up on the stat sheet, but like what he's doing, disrupting. He was disrupting Minnesota's offensive line.
Well, yeah,
No ands, ifs, or buts about it.
Yeah, they're missing their starting center too. That didn't help and stuff. But I know they abandoned the running game very early, and you could tell that not only by looking at the stat sheet, but just watching the game. Like Madison just couldn't get going. Like I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like when he used to replace Dalvin Cook, you'd used to see these monster games from him. Now that he's the guy, I just haven't seen that, but I'm not sure that the game scripts have been perfect for him to be that guy right now. You know?
I think the big difference between this year's team and last year's team, like sure, they were 11 and 0 in one score games, which obviously that helps. But two, they had Dalvin Cook to lean on. And like they just don't have that this year.
Yeah.
They don't.
I think they're missing him a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And you can really tell because they abandoned the run pretty early. And granted, they were down 20, so they didn't really have a choice. But even early in the game, they just couldn't get anything going running the ball. And last year with Cook, like you knew he would always get you 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Like so it was always second and manageable. Yep.
Yeah. One thing I have to ask you about this game, and just because it's been rolling around in my head, and now, of course, I see the big networks kind of pushing this narrative and stuff, but even last week when we were going through and filming our show and stuff, we had talked about it. Like, if this continues, and this was just after the first week, right? The Vikings lose and stuff, and then, we're looking at it like, okay, well, how many games are they going to have to lose before they'd be willing to come off Kirk Cousins? And then he goes out and puts up this absolutely monster game. Like, for me, like, if they go, and I'm looking at the schedule, they could start out 1-4. It's realistic. I think they play Kansas City and someone else real tough coming in the next few weeks in here. Like,
they have San Diego this coming week. They have Carolina and Kansas City. Like, there's a world where they're 1-4 after this.
Yeah.
And their schedule doesn't get easier either, like the rest of the way. Yeah. Like they got to play the 49ers. They still got to play the Falcons, the Saints. They got to play the Bengals, like it's.
Let's not forget too, in this division, and I know, okay, they play in a dome, Detroit plays in a dome, but they're gonna have to go to Chicago and Green Bay, and playing those games in the cold is not fun. That is
Yeah.
not a fun place to go. So,
Yeah.
at least for me, like I don't know. I just think they need to really get it together and kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about this a lot too on the Friday show. San Diego, Minnesota is going to one of my games of the week, just because this is a big game for both of them. There, you got two 0-2 teams where one of them will probably be 0-3 at the end of this, barring a tie. Like, and then what happens from there? So it'll be interesting to see.
Very true. Well, hey, let's move on here. We've got Baltimore and Cincinnati, and this was actually a pretty interesting game when you look at it and stuff. My prediction for that, I had Cincinnati winning 35-28 over Baltimore. You had a little bit lower scoring. You said Cincinnati be winning 17 over Baltimore, and the outcome, Baltimore wins 27-24. So very close, right down to the wire. Baltimore playing well enough again to win another game and improve to 2-0. Like, is this a team that you think is really a contender in the AFC?
At this point, I maybe, just because like the Chubb injury is huge for Cleveland. Pittsburgh, like I think they're going to go as far as TJ Watt. How many times can TJ Watt hit quarterbacks? That's really their only way, I think, of winning at this point. And with Cincinnati, like I'm still not worried, but like I am a little concerned. Like Burrow doesn't look. I don't think he's healthy. I don't think that he is. He just doesn't look like the same guy from last year.
I mean, he tweaked his calf again, which is not good news, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say about him, and he's a guy, and listen, all the quarterbacks that got paid, they deserve their money and stuff. I get it. Like, they signed their contracts and stuff, but Joe Burrow strikes me as the guy that's like going to come in and say, okay, you signed me to that contract. I'm not missing time. I'm not doing that. Like, you paid me that kind of money. I'm going to figure out a way to be there and do it, even if I'm hurt. Right. And like, and that's the thing that's at least the vibe I get from him. And he looks like not himself. I know they have the 2 touchdown passes to Higgins there, but they just did not look like themselves when they were out there.
Yeah, it's weird because they have the best wide receiving core in the league, and they're just getting shut down right now. And I know a lot of that is Burrow not having enough time, as per usual, to get the ball out. But also, too, I think with that calf injury, I think that means like Burrow can't step into throws the way he wants to, and like
that's his.
You're just kind of seeing it, and you're just kind of seeing it all throughout. Like, it's funny too. Even though they only lost by 3, I really thought Burrow had a chance at the end. I did.
Yeah.
Like,
he's one of those guys, right? Like, you always think he's got a chance to. You're looking at the time and you're like, all right, there's 50 seconds left, but Burrow's getting the ball. You're like, well, he can do it, right? Like, there's a chance. What worries me, and this is a little more concerning, injury aside and stuff, he's playing against a Baltimore defense that, they're missing Humphrey, they're missing Marcus Williams, like they're not at full strength, and we still saw them struggle with trying to push the ball against them. Like, I don't know. And like, maybe Baltimore is that good, right? Like, they've got other playmakers on that defense and stuff, but I'm just looking at their side of the ball. Mark Andrews comes back. He's an absolute fridge of a man. Really, really good hands too. Like, he's Lamar's favorite target, hands down, right? Like, they bring in OBJ, they paid him $15 million. I get that. He's not going to get more targets than Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is Lamar's guy. So he comes back. Zay Flowers he teetered off a little bit in terms of his 46% target share in the first week and stuff. That's just not sustainable either, right? No. So OBJ goes out and he's hurt and stuff. Hopefully it's not too long for him and stuff. But the big thing that I found in this offense, and especially in this game, is on third down, Lamar keeps the ball. And my thing that I guess I want to ask you is, if you're the Cincinnati defensive coordinator, is there anyone you think that's not going to have the ball besides him, right? Like, he's that dude, right? Like, he's good. Yeah. He's going to get that first. If it's 3rd and short or 3rd and anything, I could almost bet $1 million on the fact that he's keeping the ball, right? Yeah. Like, you got to focus on him. So why didn't they?
I think they try to for a little bit of it, but like what the problem is like Lamar Jackson's so fast.
Mhm.
Like when he decides he's taking off, by the time that you realize that he's gonna take off, it's too late. You've already messed it up.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna get that first down. Like you can have a great game plan where you keep a guy at home just focused on Lamar, but like it's hard to replicate Lamar's speed in practice.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I don't know how you practice against that.
Yeah.
He's just so fast, and like once he turns on the jets, it's over. Like it honestly, it's been nice with him watching him do that because he did a lot of that in 2019 when he won MVP. Like the passing stats aren't all the way there, but like he does just enough. He does just enough on third downs, and like you always have to account for it. And like there just aren't a lot of guys in the league that can catch him.
Well, and that's
There
the
aren't.
thing. Once he's gone, right? Like, all
Yeah.
he's got to do is hit that seam, and he's 75 yards to the house in a matter of seconds, right? Like people, you
Yeah.
could blink and you're missing this guy. So it's I definitely like the game and stuff. I'm hoping Cincinnati's able to kind of pull it together, and Baltimore, like, they seem primed to like be able to even make a run without Dobbins, and like, you know.
I'll tell you, Cincinnati's schedule too. The next two, they got the Rams at home, and then they're at Tennessee for the Titans. Like, say what you want about the Rams, but they at least they seem like they might be decent.
They're playing
and
well too.
The Titans are the Titans, and like there's a world where they could be 1-3 or 0-4 in 2 weeks, and like that's concerning.
That's a thing too. Like the one thing I'll say about the Titans, because I've slept on them so far this season, and it's like recency bias and stuff like that. But the big thing is they're very well coached. Mike Vrabel is an excellent coach. He comes from the Belichick tree. He knows how to be able to take guys out of games, and like you've seen it so far this season,
Yeah.
like what they did to the Chargers and stuff. So
yeah. And Baltimore's schedule too is, I mean, they have the Colts next week, which like if there's not going to be Richardson, like if Richardson's going to be out with that concussion, like that's, and then they got Cleveland the week after, and no Nick Chubb, like
I'll tell you,
that offense looks kind of pedestrian at this point. Like
if Richardson is there, though, we got the battle of the running quarterbacks. Just one is about twice the size of the other one, right? So,
man.
Well, let's move on here. The next game we got Seattle versus Detroit. The prediction I had for it: Detroit 31, Seattle 17. You said Detroit 34, Seattle 31, and it ended up being Seattle 37, Detroit 31. So both of us wrong on our pick, but pretty close in terms of the score, in terms of the over/under. This was an awesome game to watch.
And I talked about this when we went over this game last week. I talked about it. The last two meetings, like these were both really high scoring affairs, and this one was kind of the same. And this game was also the weird game of the day. Like there was just some weird stuff that happened. Like we're gonna talk about it. Like that Geno Smith play. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on.
Yeah, that was so painful to see. So
just
painful.
throw it away.
Yeah,
just throw it away.
So painful. Well, I know we'll definitely get to that. Part of what I saw in the game, at least, Ken Walker, he's running the ball fairly well, but just very inefficient, right? Like, and I know that was kind of his game last year. It was his game in college, right? He gets 30 carries. He's going to eventually break one, and then it makes it worth it and stuff. But he was very inefficient running the ball, and it was kind of glazed over by 2 touchdowns, right? Like people look at that stat line, they're like, "Oh, Ken Walker played so well," but he really didn't. Charbonnet, got a very small fraction of the carries, but he did look good when he was in there. So I wonder if at any point in time they make the change, but their coach Pete Carroll has been committed to one running back at a time and stuff. He's not really a guy that uses multiple backs, so we're going to see end up seeing where that kind of takes us. I just was really happy with how they played, considering they were missing both their starting tackles. So like for me, like that, I thought I was very impressed by it. I thought they played very well against a tenacious Detroit defense, missing both their guys that protect Geno the most.
Yeah, Geno did a lot this game to kind of silence some people, because that first week, man, he he looked awful against the Rams. He did. I think what really impressed me was like overtime on the road, he drove them the length of the field, got that touchdown in overtime to make sure that Detroit didn't get the ball. Like I was actually really impressed by what Geno did. I don't know about you, but like that was, if Seattle's gonna go far and like they have the talent to do it, like it starts with Geno. It really does. And he's gotta be able to lead them down the field and not make those dumb decisions.
Yeah, let's just take a break for a second here too, and think about Geno, because like, and I know you were saying like he silenced a lot of critics with that and stuff, but this is the way I kind of see it. No one wanted this guy. This guy was the bottom of the rust bucket in the basement in New York, and no one wanted this dude. And Seattle gives him a chance. They bring him in. They're playing games like, oh yeah, like we're gonna have a quarterback competition between him and Drew Lock. Dude, like this guy's been really, really good. And in a league where like you need a serviceable quarterback, tell me the Jets wouldn't be happy to have Geno Smith right now. Like, some of these teams, they just, I don't know. It bothers me that people slept on him because he's good because he's in the NFL. Sometimes those guys, like for instance, even Brady, like they don't become great unless you give them a chance, right?
Yeah. And he was never going to get that chance in New York after because he was the guy, if you remember, he got his jaw broken by his teammate.
Yeah.
And like after that, like there was just no way he was ever going to play in New York. Yeah. Like, and I'm really glad that Seattle found him, and he won comeback player of the year, and he got himself paid too, which is like, you love to see it. Yeah. So I think he's definitely a dude for sure.
Now it doesn't hit the stat line, right? It doesn't show up in the box score anywhere, but this is 2 weeks in a row of Geno Smith having sound bites that appear all over the internet. First running from Aaron Donald. Now he's going to talk to the ref, and the ref says, "Excuse me, sir, I'm speaking to America." Right? Like there's just it makes him more likable, right? Like it's hard to look at him and be like, I want to see that dude fail. Right? Like it just, I thought they're figuring it out and stuff. You know, conversely, on the other side, you've got Detroit, who I'm heartbroken to see them lose. One team has to lose that game, obviously, but I'm heartbroken to see them lose because of Jared Goff had that streak going of
most one out.
Yeah, and it just, he really wasn't that far away from being able to set the record for it. But now the thing I like about this is there's less pressure on him because of that. The thing I'm more concerned about is now David Montgomery's out. So there's more pressure back on Jared Goff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think there's more pressure too on Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
Like, can he show that he can be an every down back? Because the first 2 weeks, like he's had the right role. Like he comes in, he's a nice change of pace for Montgomery, but now he's gonna have to tote it 20 times a game. And like, I'm curious to see if his body can hold up for that. I really am, because he's a speed guy, and like speed guys historically in the NFL, like they can do it for a little while, but they can't take that constant pounding like a guy like Montgomery can. Like,
yeah, so I think they're actually going to use him a little differently, because I think I say differently. They're going to use him the same way they've been using him as the change of pace back. I think they're going to use Craig Reynolds at least to try to use him in the way that they use Montgomery. But again, like you're talking about a guy that's unproven, right? And that's a really tough thing. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a few weeks now without Montgomery to kind of figure out, like, all right, like, can we give this guy 12 to 15 touches a game? And then, you know, maybe end of November, early December, he's really in there at like 20 carries a game, right? Or like at least 20 touches of the football, right? I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be at least trying to target him out of the backfield on like 6-7 plays a game at least. He's just he's that good, man. Like he really, really is.
Yeah, I agree. I think too. I think with Gibbs, what I'm excited to see is like you said, how many catches he is going to get out of the backfield, because that's really what he is really good at. Is just, he's a good running back with good hands who, like, if you throw it to him, he's not going to drop it, and that's going to have to be a big part of Detroit's offense. And then, like, on the other side of that, Detroit losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson is just, man, that hurts.
There's
That
there's
hurts.
there's rumors that he tore his pec, and man, like that would just I'd be crushed for him for that because it just he's a guy that like is definitely outspoken in that locker room. He's a leader. He came in, in free agency, but players look to him to be that playmaker and stuff. And he was very good last year for I believe he was with the Saints, but then he ended up going to Philly.
Yeah.
And so you get a chance to get a guy in your locker room that has Super Bowl experience. You're going to learn a lot from him. So I would be crushed for him. And man, it's like any other team in the NFL though, right? Next man up. Next man up gets
Yeah.
a shot now. So
yeah. And I think too, when the Lions signed him, that was my favorite signing of the offseason for the Lions, because you're signing a locker room leader. That's
Yeah.
exactly what you're signing. Like, you're signing a guy that has been to a Super Bowl, that has that experience, and that kind of leadership I think is going to be missed when he's out. Like, and I'm really interested to see how this shakes, because like Detroit now is kind of getting the vibe of a team that's like, hey, we had all these expectations, but man, we're going to get hit with every injury this year imaginable. So
right.
it'll be interesting to see.
I hope that doesn't happen. I know Amon-Ra got shook up a few times in their game and stuff. I hope that doesn't linger and stuff because he's really fantastic to watch. He's a lot of fun. So, all right, here moving on into Kansas City versus Jacksonville. Now, my prediction was Jacksonville was going to win 28-24. You had Kansas City at 27-24. The outcome: Kansas City 17, Jacksonville 9. Like that. This was not what we were expecting at all from this game. And I don't know, like I watch Red Zone, right? So like, and I think you said you did too. Like being able to go through and like they showed so few clips of that game because there was no scoring. It was not fun to watch. Like I went back and
it was a rock fight.
Yeah, it just I mean, neither team really looked impressive on offense. Like was there anything you saw that you were like, oh yeah, this?
I wasn't shocked with Kansas City just because I think it was Kelsey's first week back. And I think, he still got a touchdown. Mahomes still found him in the red zone when needed. So I wasn't really worried about that. From what I saw of Kelsey, like he seemed like the knee looked all right. I think he needs just a couple weeks to kind of get back into the rhythm of it. But
Angry
honestly,
mustache,
minus Kelsey, like they still don't have anybody to throw to.
Yeah.
Like, and that was painfully obvious. Like Mahomes is just like chucking it to dudes, and like it's just not going well. It isn't.
I mean, it was good to see Tony kind of bounce back. He caught all 5 of the targets that he had and stuff. It just, you never want to see a guy go through kind of what he went through in week 1 and, the harassment he gets and stuff like that. It just, rough to see that. But, maybe with Kelsey coming back, maybe it was part of that rehab and maybe someone special that he's dating that was able to get him back on the field quickly. So, definitely good to see that. I think the big story in this game, because obviously Jacksonville wasn't. They just looked bad, man. Like they weren't able to do anything they wanted to do. Etienne didn't look good. Ridley didn't look good. Trevor Lawrence didn't look good. I mean, the only person on that offense that looked even remotely productive was Christian Kirk, and which was good because he did nothing in week 1, right? So like to see him kind of get back and into the rhythm of things felt good, but they've got to get it together at Jacksonville. They got big expectations there too. And this was a big test for them. They were able to keep it close, so maybe a few things go their way. Maybe the game ends up different. But Chris Jones being there with the sacks and stuff, I mean, he's an absolute monster. 1.5 sacks. Do you think they missed him a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. And I think too what really did Jacksonville, and 2 things. A, Chris Jones coming back like that, he's just going to wreak havoc on any offensive line. Right. Also, 2, like Lawrence is missing his tackle right now. Like that's like that offensive line isn't healthy. They're not a complete line yet. Like I'm not so worried about them yet. What I was worried about was some of the throws that Lawrence made, like that the 4th down to end the game. Mm-hmm. Like he just put it in a spot where like nobody like really couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was close too. Like, right. Like it was a toe drag away from like being there. Right. Like it just, I don't put that on Ridley though. Apparently I had a really bad take there before with picking, like talking about the Jaguars. The police are coming for me now. Like, I don't know if you
Well,
could hear them, but yeah, they're definitely coming for me now off that take.
send them to
So
my address when we're done, because I did say the Jets were going to make the Super Bowl. So
yeah. Oh man. One other thing I was going to mention too, Mahomes gets the new deal. They free up a little more cap space, so I'm kind of interested with that. They had, I think they've got like 5.2 million now under the cap. So who knows what moves they can kind of make going forward and stuff. Maybe they convert someone else's salary into a bonus and they're able to free up more. But I'm kind of
yeah.
interested as to what moves they're thinking of making. Maybe they need to go after a receiver. Maybe they bring in like a Mike Evans, like I don't know. Like do you think there's an opportunity for them to kind of make a move?
They have to do something.
Yeah.
They have to, because this is not like, I know Mahomes will get you 12 wins every year. And I know he'll get you to the playoffs. He'll probably get you to the AFC title game, but like when it's 3rd and 7 in the AFC title game and you're down 4 and Kelsey's double covered, like who are you throwing it to?
Yeah.
Like you're not like you're just not like, and that might come back and haunt them. And that honestly reminds me a lot of the year, I think it was like 06, the year before we went 18-1. The Patriots had nobody to throw to that year. It was like Rashae Caldwell and a bunch of dudes.
I
Like
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, like Brady got you all the way to the AFC title game. He even put you up 21-3. And then like when it came not crunching time, like he couldn't throw to anybody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you need competent receivers, and
that
Kansas
was
City
one of
doesn't
the
have them right now.
Yeah, and that game you're talking about, the 21-3, that was one of the craziest games I've ever witnessed in my life. So, real interesting. But hopefully Kansas City's able to kind of remedy some of those issues and get on the right foot here. But let's talk about this game. We had Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. My prediction was Pittsburgh was going to win 21-17. You picked Cleveland 23-10. The outcome ended up being Pittsburgh winning 26-22. First, before we even get into anything, like I'm gutted for Nick Chubb, man. Like that is just, it is so sad to see him go down with an injury. Like there's a few guys that when you watch them play the game, you can tell they put everything they have into every single play. And Nick Chubb is one of those guys, and you could tell from the, there was just an outpour on social media from everybody reaching out, from LeBron to JJ Watt, all these guys just saying like, man, like that's just, it's rough. And then I see the other side of it too, where people are criticizing the defensive player for that. And I see, I think it was Ryan Clark saying like, okay, so we hit a guy high, he ends up getting a concussion, we're at fault. We hit a guy low, he ends up blowing out a knee, we're at fault. So like, where can you hit a guy that is going to be acceptable? And I think it's a controversial play, right? Because like he's tied up, he's carrying a guy, and then he gets hit. Like it's tough, man. It really, really is.
I'm going to say a thing, and I might be in the minority on this, but I didn't really find a problem with the hit on Chubb.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. Like a guy that size, like how else are you supposed to tackle him? Like you can't, like he's so strong, his upper body's so strong, you can't bring him down like that.
Yeah.
Like that's just not possible. Like, so your only other option is his legs.
It's like the Gronk argument, man.
Yeah, which, and his legs are equally as strong, but like at least maybe you have a shot of tripping him up. Like, yeah.
I wish
it was really sad to see.
Yeah, I just wish him a speedy recovery, man. I hope it's not like, I know he's getting older and stuff, but he's a productive back. I want to see him back again and doing what he loves. So definitely rough to see that and stuff. Cleveland afterwards, it seems like Ford ended up running the ball pretty well in Chubb's absence and stuff. He had that nice 69-yard run, which looked really
the big run.
Yeah, it looked really solid.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson just, I don't know, man. Like he's just not the same dude that he was when he was in Houston. Like that guy had swagger and stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's not, maybe he's not feeling it here in Cleveland, right? But when he was let loose in Houston, I mean, that guy could put up 40-something points a game. and he did it behind a line that wasn't superb, right? Like,
yeah, it's wild to me that he doesn't like. We talk about Lamar taking off and running. That was a big part of Watson's game in Houston,
yeah,
and you just don't like he just. I don't know if he feels like he has to be a pocket passer, but like he holds on to the ball way too long sometimes, and then like and he doesn't take a lot of sacks because like he will get rid of the ball, but like just take off and run once in a while, man.
yeah.
Like
You got the legs to
but
do
like
it.
but I get it too. The playing Pittsburgh, that means you have to play TJ Watt, and he is going to wreak havoc on everyone.
Yeah,
And you saw it last night. He was the reason Pittsburgh won last night.
yeah. Yeah, he's a great player, man. It's a lot of fun to watch him and stuff, and that defense in general, the way Mike Tomlin gets them ready to play defense, it was good to see them have a bounce back game because they just did not look like themselves in week 1 at all. Yeah, Watt has the 3 sacks, I get that and stuff, but like that team did not play as a team in week 1. They come in, they get the win. It feels much better seeing it that way and stuff. I don't know. One thing I was kind of impressed with was their offensive line. You know, Cleveland's defense very, very good with Myles Garrett up front there, and they weren't able to get the pressure on Kenny Pickett that I would have thought and kind of expected them to do. I thought maybe it was scheme that they just ended up outplaying Cleveland or outcoached them. I mean, did you have any thoughts on that?
It's tough because I Kenny Pickett didn't play particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with that. I people were really high on him taking a big step this offseason, and I don't see it with them. I don't. And like I know that you were really high on them in our big preview show to start the season.
Yeah.
And I think with me, I'm just not seeing enough progression for a second year guy. Like
Right.
he's making a lot of the same rookie mistakes he made before. And you know, I think honestly, like Cleveland, they just got outcoached.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like Mike Tomlin is one of the better coaches in the league, and Cleveland got outcoached. And between that and TJ Watt, those are the 2 reasons they won that game.
Right.
Hands down. And with Mike Tomlin, he's always going to make sure he puts his team in great positions. I think that Cleveland just got outcoached, and it was pretty obvious, I think, for me, because they should have had a field day with Kenny Pickett, and the fact that they didn't really get to him was concerning.
Yeah.
They forced the 1 pick on him, but like,
you know, it was interesting because they missed Deontay Johnson with that injury and stuff, but George Pickens had himself a day, man. 4 grabs, 127 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah. Here I am putting my foot in my mouth last week after being able to say, like, oh, yeah, like, he can't really get separation. That's why he makes all these acrobatic catches because, like, everyone's draped over him when he does it and stuff. Goes out and, like, no one's on him when he's racking up 127 yards on 4 catches. You know, like,
yeah,
he's definitely an athlete. I love being able to watch him play, and it wasn't any knock on him. I think he's fantastic, man. I really like watching George Pickens play. And here he goes out and proves me wrong and makes me look bad. So, but
yeah.
where do you see the Steelers headed from here?
Well, here's the thing: their next 2 games are pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have, if I remember correctly, they have Vegas this week in Vegas, and then they're on the road again for Houston.
Yeah.
Like those are 2 winnable games.
They should be 3-1 coming out of those, you know, the first 4 games.
I mean, CJ Stroud looked great Sunday. Like played great, through for like what over 300 yards.
The most in the league. The most in the league, yeah.
But they should be able to beat both those teams. And then they have the rate, and then they have a tough stretch after that. Mm-hmm. They should be 3-1.
Yeah.
Going into that Ravens game.
Now, what do you think about Cleveland? Because, like, you know, they obviously Jerome Ford, he played well, but like, where do you see them kind of going from here? How do you see their season kind of taking a turn?
The thing is, like, first of all, Cooper's still not. I mean, like, he had decent stats last night, but like, you can tell that Amani Cooper is just not healthy still.
Yeah.
Like, he's not, and he's not 100%. And with Chubb being gone for the season, that line is still not 100%. And their schedule, like I'm looking at their schedule now, their next 3, Titans, Ravens, 49ers. That's not good.
I could see them
Like,
dropping all 3 of those. So interesting because they start week 1, they beat the Bengals, right? And
yeah.
then they win or they lose the next 4. Like it just, I don't know. That does not look good.
I also too, what was weird about the game last night was like Watson fumbled the ball twice, like lost 2 fumbles. Like they got to do a better job of just not turning the ball over.
Right.
Like that killed them yesterday.
Yeah.
That killed them. Like
can't win
but yeah, no.
Can't win a game in this league turning the ball over. It's
No.
not sustainable. So
no.
All right. Well, let's move on. I know we weren't going to talk about this game, but there's just so much that needs to be said about this matchup between Dallas and the Jets. Now, it just, for me, like this should have been an incredible matchup, right? But it just wasn't because obviously Rodgers wasn't there. This was kind of Zach Wilson's like coming out party. Let's see what he really can do against this strong Dallas D. But yeah. I really, and I've got to repeat this because I heard that Shannon Sharp say this. It said, can you be what you need to be when you have to be, right?
Yeah.
When talking about the Dallas offense. And I really think that that's going to be some questions that we're going to have going forward about this Dallas team because they're going to be scrutinized. They're one of the only teams in the NFL that every single year, it does not matter how good or how bad they were the year before, they're a Super Bowl contender. They're the only team that people talk about that with, other than the Patriots for the years Brady was there, right? But like, this is a team back from the 90s that every year they've been talking about this and stuff. So one thing I will say, and I've never been a Mike McCarthy fan. I don't think you have either, right? Yeah,
I will openly dunk on him any time that I can. Like
I can no longer do that, at least for the first 2 games of the season, because the way he is play called. And I was very critical of them getting rid of Kellen Moore and letting him go to Los Angeles. He's been very, very impressive calling plays for the Dallas Cowboys. The way they play, man, are you seeing these plays come in? Dak's getting to the line with 20 seconds to go on the play clock where he can look at the line and say, okay, well, you know what? I don't like the look of that. Let's audible out of that, or let's make these changes. And again, I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan. I've been impressed with him, man. I really have.
Here's my thing. What I don't love about Dallas's offense is I just feel like they settle for a lot of field goals for a team that should be better. And it's fine now because you're playing teams like the Jets and the Giants and you're just crushing them because defensively you're great. But when you play a team like they're gonna have to play Philly twice, and they're gonna have to play the 49ers, like you can't settle for 3. You can't against those teams because they will just rip you up. And that's my one concern with them is they settle for a lot of field goals, and it's like I said, it's fine now because they're blowing teams out. But like when it gets to be a close game, I'm curious to see how that changes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, their defense is impressive, though. And I mean, they probably have I'll go out and say, listen, I love TJ Watt and stuff. Micah Parsons is the best player in the NFL, regardless of the side of the ball. That guy is impossible to cover. Impossible.
Yeah.
He just, and it's just not fair when you think about it, right? Like, this is the frustrating thing for me is we knew what the Jets were going to be without Aaron Rodgers at offense. We've seen it before, right? We know exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
My big issue is why didn't you run the ball? You literally let your quarterback just sit back and drop back consistently and get rocked by this Dallas defense. Like, do you have a death wish for Zach Wilson?
It was maddening how many times on first down they decided to throw the ball. It was maddening to me because the times they ran it on first down, like they were doing all right. Like they were getting like 3 yards, 3 yards a pop. And like 2nd and 7's a lot more manageable than 2nd and 10.
Yeah.
When like everybody knows like, okay, they're going to run now to try to get some of that. Like you can't do that against this defense. And like, I think this speaks to a lot of, I don't think that Robert Saleh is a good head coach. and I know you and I feel the same way on this. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett is a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Dude, Brees Hall, you saw him in the first game, man. Like, yeah, okay, so he was a little out of shape and stuff. He gets dragged down on that 85-yard run. What did he have? 140 all-purpose yards and stuff, and that 127 of them, I think, or 128 were rushing. You give him 4 carries? 4. Come on, man. Like, what are you doing?
When Zach Wilson's your leading rusher, that's not good. That's not good at all, man. Like, I know you didn't watch Hard Knocks, but like Hard Knocks really showed that he's not a good coach, just in general. Like he's a weird dude. B, he's obsessed with the movie Goldmember, the Austin Powers movie.
Yeah.
And he calls the red zone the gold zone.
Oh, that makes me mad.
And he's just a weird dude that like he's not a good coach. Like he's not.
Just a spoiler too. It's not that I don't want to watch Hard Knocks, because I definitely do.
I know.
But no. I know you weren't saying that, but maybe people that are watching don't know. But because I live in Turkey, they don't allow HBO here. So it's not that I don't want to watch it. I definitely do. I just, by the government's control, I can't access it. So, but I agree with you, man. Like, listen, I'm not an NFL coordinator. I've never done that. I've never been there on any level doing that. But how is this dude still calling plays in the NFL? Like, how,
it's
man?
Bananas.
Dude, I don't know. Like, you're going against arguably the best defense in the NFL. Why do you play to their strength? Like, dude, look at it. Look at what Atlanta does. Atlanta's not a good team. They're 2-0. Why? Because they run the ball. Even when they're behind, they're doing what they're wearing other teams down. Like, you need to do that if you're the Jets. You play very good defense. You have a great defense. In order to keep you competitive, you need to wear down the other team and give a guy who's probably your best playmaker on offense a chance to break a run. Now, I say that lightly because Garrett Wilson is an absolute freak. He just has no one to help him. No one. And he
got hurt at the end of that game too. Which isn't good, but they're saying that he just got like the wind knocked out of him and he'll be fine. But like still, like this team's in trouble. This team, like, it's not good. And Micah Parsons just had a field day with the Jets offense.
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't pretty.
Micah Parsons has a soft spot in my heart because he was a Penn State grad, but he would actually go back and he attended the wrestling matches at Penn State, which is really cool that like he'd go, Kale brought him in to talk to the team and stuff like that. It's so cool to be able to do that. So I love Micah Parsons. I think he's awesome. And the way he plays the game, he's not dirty. He's not cruel. None of that. He plays very clean. You just can't catch him. Can't catch him.
He's just so fast.
Yeah. And super powerful.
There are plays like you're watching it and you're like, oh, he's already in the backfield. How?
Yeah.
Like I saw him line up at linebacker and he's already in the backfield.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's wild. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to talk about that because I just had some serious feelings about that. And I'm watching, like, Get Up in the morning. I'm yelling at the TV, like, I'm saying that, right? Like, I'm feeling it, like, as these guys are talking about, like, what is this dude still doing there? It just blows my mind. But,
well, what's wild, too, is, like, the Jets kind of hung around a little bit in that game for a while. And, like, if they had a halfway competent quarterback, I think they make Dallas sweat this out.
Yeah.
But Dallas in the second half, like they just, they did just enough, and what worries me, like I said with Dallas, like Dallas kicked 5 field goals. Mm-hmm. Like I know defensively the Jets are decent and they're pretty good, but like
that's not going to get it done.
5 field goals isn't going to cut it when you play Philly and the 49ers.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah. You're right. Well, let's move on to some upsets that we had because we had a few. So we'll bang through these real quick. So Chargers getting beat by the Titans. I mean, I'm just like mind blown by that. They're 0-2 now. Two real tough losses. They're talking before about like, Staley says, hey, listen, it's not You guys keep bringing up the narrative that it's the Jacksonville loss, this and that and stuff, and he's claiming that it's not, that people in the locker room aren't thinking about that. Do you believe that? Is it in their head? Like, what is it that's going on here?
I think him publicly saying it's not the Jacksonville loss tells me that it's the Jacksonville loss.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I'm sorry. And I said this at the start of the year too, but like that loss haunted them. And I think it's going to haunt them this season. Because the moment things get tight, everybody's just going to think, and myself included, like, how are the Chargers going to fuck this up? And I'm always, and like,
yep.
you saw it on Sunday, like that roughing the passer call on Tannehill. Like, there's no reason for that. There's no he smokes Tannehill, and then that on a third down, and it keeps him on the field. You can't do that. Like, you're not a good coach if your team's not disciplined.
Right.
That falls on you.
Yeah.
That falls on the head coach.
Yeah, it does. It kills me to see Herbert going through this. Like, other guys too, right? Keenan Allen had himself a day and like played really well, but like to see Herbert go through this, it's just crushing because like he's a likable guy. I don't think there's anyone in the NFL that's a fan of the NFL that can look at him and be like, I don't like that guy. Like, he's a young kid that just can literally throw 60 yards on a dime, right? Across his body. Like, it kills me to see them losing in just dumb ways, right? Like,
that's always been the Chargers thing, though. They always lose in dumb ways. Like, they wasted an entire career of Phil Rivers, and they're gonna do the same thing with Herbert.
And don't forget, LaDainian Tomlinson and Antonio Gates were there. Sean Merriman was on that team. Like, they had good players. Antonio Cromartie was there too. Like, they had good players on those teams.
The longer that time goes by, the better Eli Manning looks for asking for that trade when San Diego took him at number 1.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's brutal.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, the Chargers just do Chargers things, and it always comes back and haunts them. It does. And honestly, like, I thought that Staley was going to get fired after the Jacksonville loss, and it's wild that he came back. He was allowed back.
Mm-hmm.
I think if this keeps up, like, there's a world where if they're like 2-6 at like the midpoint, like, I think there's a world where they just get rid of them.
Yeah, it is possible, man. Like, there's going to be some coaches, and that's one nice thing I want to bring up at some point is like coaches that are going to be on the hot seat, right? Like, because we'll have a field day talking about that for sure. So, all right. Speaking of Eli Manning, the Giants come back from down 28-0 to win. Like, another sad injury to see. Saquon Barkley. Now, they say reports are that it's just a typical sprain, so he'll be out 2-3 weeks and he'll be back and stuff. But still gut-wrenching to see that, right? Like, but in this game, you see Daniel Jones kind of lead them back against the tanking team in the NFL.
What two things. One, it's wild to me that they didn't score their first touchdown until 13 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah.
That's wild. Two, it should have never gotten to this point. Like, I didn't start Daniel Jones this week because I just was like, I just assumed that they were going to come out kind of flat against Arizona because that loss was rough, and you don't bounce back from that right away. Like, and for a half, I looked smart. I looked smart starting Russell Wilson. I did.
Yeah.
And then, like, they started chipping away at it, and like, and they did a lot of it without Barkley too, and it's maddening because the Giants don't have anybody to throw to, so I don't understand how they scored all those points.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Waller, but you're right, like, really no one to be able to chuck the rock to. It just you had brought it up before about like the Giants getting just smoked against Dallas in week 1. The only time I've seen a team really bounce back and it be nothing, it's kind of funny because the Cowboys were involved in it last year when they smoked Minnesota. they absolutely crushed them, and then the next week Minnesota was like back to normal. They're like, yeah, we'll just pretend that didn't happen, right? And like
Yeah.
went back to being playing the way they did and stuff. But you're right, it does take a bit. And you did no, I don't think anyone expected 6 quarters of football before the Giants were going to actually score a touchdown, right? Like in the 7th quarter of football that they played this season, they finally got
Yeah.
points on the board, right? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And I think too with the Giants, like you can't just throw away the first half of every game. That's just not feasible.
Yeah.
You're not going to win a lot of games like that. Like, sure, you won against Arizona because it's the Cardinals, and I think they're just trying to tank for Caleb Williams. But like,
maybe
you're gonna if they try that shit against the 49ers, the 49ers they're gonna be down like 40-0 before you know it with the 49ers if they're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the one thing I will say that I think is their saving grace is, Daniel Jones isn't as bad as people think he is, and they're well coached with Brian Daboll. Like he's a guy that I would love to play for him, man. I really would. Like he's a guy that inspires people. So I really think, they got a shot to come out of that. But one other upset they had here was Atlanta getting beat by Green Bay. Now I don't know if you saw the clip of Jordan Love where like he went to like it looked like he was trying to like QB sneak and he just fell. Like, dude, it almost reminded me of like the Mark Sanchez butt fumble. Like it was like on that level, right? Like,
oh man.
Oh, what are your thoughts on that game? Because other than Bijan looking just like, oh yeah, like deservedly being the top running back taken in the draft this year.
I want to say a thing. I don't know if Desmond Ritter is a good quarterback or not. I don't. Like you touched on it earlier. Atlanta does this thing where like they just keep running the ball even when they're down because like that's their bread and butter, and they wear teams down that way. And like Ritter made just enough plays, and that's me being generous because he was ass for 3 quarters in that game. He really was. Like for 3 quarters, Jordan Love looked like a guy that was like, oh man, this guy's kind of figured it out already. Good on him.
Yeah.
And then like Green Bay was tired in that 4th quarter because Atlanta just kept running the ball, and like eventually, Atlanta was able to win that. And it's no knock on Jordan Love because like he had a chance to drive the team that final drive, and he went 4 and out essentially. Like it was just 4 incompletions, and like that's just him not getting enough reps.
Right.
Like I think he'll figure that out in time. But like once like he was trying to drive them down the field, I was like, oh, this game's over. Like he's not getting this. Like I'm sorry. Like it's wild. Atlanta shouldn't be 2-0. They shouldn't be. It's maddening.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before Ritter is replaced, and I really hope it comes at some point soon because like when you have guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan on that team too, like it's just a waste of talent to have a quarterback that's not going to air it out sometimes and throw, right? Like if you run the ball that well, which Atlanta does, like they've got bears on that line that just toss people to create lanes. Like when you've got that good of a running game, it sets up the pass, but they don't pass. They know that they're running every time. And like Bijan can only do so much, right? Like I saw one of his runs that he had where he juked like 3 guys on it, and I'm like, oh, so that's why that's why he's that good. Yeah, okay. All right.
I thought that I figured he was gonna be all right, but I didn't think he was gonna be that good.
Yeah, he's
like, it's insane.
It really is. So yeah, we'll see what happens with both of those teams. Another upset that we had, last one we'll chat about here, was Washington beating Denver. And I know this was interesting. So what thoughts did you have on that? I know you said you started Russell Wilson, so.
Yeah, and for a half, he made me look like the smartest person alive, and it was great. But Russell Wilson, man, like the sun is setting on that, and it's setting quickly because like he just missed so many guys. Like he had like 5 or 6 throws that you were just like, where's he throwing that? I don't. And it's just wild, and it's wild to me too. And I just don't understand like how much longer are they going to let this go? Because they do have Jarrett Stidham kind of waiting. And Stidham for a backup quarterback, they gave him a pretty big deal this offseason. I think they're going to pull the plug sooner rather than later because Sean Payton isn't married to the guy. Like he came in and Wilson was already there. So he has no skin in this game. He's just going to start whoever's going to give him the best chance. And it's sad we're at the point where like you could talk me into that Jared Stidham gives him a better chance than Russell Wilson to win a game.
See, it's interesting, man. So I have a bit of a different take on this. That's okay. We'll still be friends. But interesting stat that I came across was Denver is actually leading the league in offensive points per possession. And so my gripes, although I do feel that Russell was missing some of those throws, and I feel like that is on him, I also feel like the defense needs to play better. When you're giving up that many points to Sam Howell and the Commanders, which, listen, I'm a Sam Howell fan all day. I love him. I think it's awesome what he's able to do there, and the Commanders actually look pretty decent. But Denver is known for their defense. They're not known for having this stellar offense. Yeah, they brought in Russell Wilson, but the reason they brought him in was because just like the Jets, they were like, we're a quarterback away. And this defense is not getting it done. Right? Like Vance Joseph really needs to be able to rein it in here because this is a defense known for getting pressure on the quarterback, playing very good in coverage. Dude, it's everybody's football right now. Like I don't know. For me, I feel like Denver has been much more efficient on offense than people want to give them credit. And I think they need to be much better on defense.
I agree. I think too, we got to talk about, speaking of Denver's defense, we got to talk about Kareem Jackson.
Yeah, dude.
That Logan Thomas hit was disgusting. Like they replayed that a couple times.
Yeah.
And first of all, he launches himself at Logan Thomas.
Yeah, when you leave your feet like that, that's the problem. It wasn't like he ran over to the sideline and was diving to like knock him out of bounds. This was in the end zone where you see him just launch directly into him, like from 3 or 4 feet away.
Yeah.
Like it was just unnecessary in my mind.
Well, and what makes that hit even tougher too, two things. One, there was a guy behind Thomas as well. So not only does he take the helmet to helmet, the back of his helmet, then hits another guy's helmet, and he just gets sandwiched between two guys. And it was one of the more gross hits I've watched in a while. And two, like, this is the second week in a row that Kareem Jackson has done this.
Yeah, and knocked guys out of games, right? Like it's
he did it to Jacoby Myers last week. And I really hope that the NFL takes it seriously. And like, I think a suspension's coming for this guy.
Yeah.
Like he's got some like Vontaze Burfict like vibes to him where he just doesn't care. He's looking to hurt dudes.
Yeah, and like that's just not the football we want to see, right? Like you can lay a big hit on somebody, like we see it all the time. Like there was whether you're TJ Watt, Bosa, and one of the Bosa brothers, any of them, they lay big hits on people, right?
Yeah.
Aaron Donald does too, but like they're not out there trying to actually physically hurt somebody. They're trying to intimidate them, but they're not trying to physically maim somebody. Whereas I feel like both of those hits, with all they know about concussions, it just is unnecessary, man. It really is.
Absolutely. I'm glad that with the rules the way they were, that he got immediately ejected from the game.
Yeah.
And I think too, like these rules have been in place long enough now that there's a whole crop of guys in the league that know how to play the game the right way.
Yeah.
Like you can still hit guys and you can still hit them hard. Like you just have to be smart about it. And like what he's doing is just not only not smart, but reckless and dangerous.
Right.
It just gives football like a bad name for it. And like football does a lot of things to shoot itself in the foot on its own, but like stuff like this doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, sad to see that and stuff, but yeah. All right, now moving on into some overreactions and some underreactions. It says here, Bills have fixed their problems. What do you think? Over or under on that?
Did Josh Allen not throw an interception in the end zone? Sure, he did. He did. He righted that ship for a week. But like the Raiders hung around in that game for a quarter.
Yeah.
When they had no business hanging around in that game.
Right. Yeah.
I think there isn't really, it feels like it's kind of a push because you're playing the Raiders.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really learn anything from that game other than, oh yeah, no, the Raiders are trash. Yeah.
Well, I know we discussed it before and stuff, but Minnesota will be out by week 5. What do you have, over or under on that?
I think that's a very real possibility, especially if they lose to San Diego this week.
Yeah. And like we said, like the schedule coming up, it does not get easier for them. It's not good. So, all right, New York team seasons are over, including the Yankees.
good riddance if it's the Yankees.
Yeah,
good riddance.
Over or under reaction on that?
I think I'm going to say push, because I think while I think it's an underreaction for the Giants, I think there's a world where they can still kind of right that ship, but it does concern me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an underreaction with the underreaction with the Jets, because like I think I don't know what you do. You have to get a quarterback, and Zach Wilson has shown enough that he's not the dude.
Yeah, he's not an NFL quarterback right now, man. Like maybe after a few more seasons under Rodgers or whatever, but now it's not his time. So
I think Zach Wilson could play 50 more seasons, and I don't think he's going to be the guy. Like,
the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting in the interview, and I don't know if you picked up on this in like the post game, but like again, it was we, not I did this wrong, I should improve, I made these mistakes. And like, I don't know, I think we were both brought up differently to not act that way. So it just, for me, like that really bugs me still about him. And I know it's a minor detail, right? But like those things matter, right? Like,
right.
They definitely do. So, all right. So Bengals and Chargers won't make the playoffs. Is that an overreaction or an underreaction?
I think it's an overreaction for the Bengals because they started 0-2 last year.
Yep.
I still think they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm a little concerned.
Okay.
I am going to say it. And with the Chargers, like, I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't. I think that they just, I think, that Jacksonville loss still haunts them, and they're the Chargers. They will find fun and creative ways to mess this up.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to watch those personally.
All right. Commanders are for real. Over or an underreaction?
They have played 2 teams in the past 2 weeks that like they should have beaten. Let's be honest.
Okay.
I don't really trust the quarterback situation in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't trust Ron Rivera as a coach. He's not a good head coach. He's not.
I do like what they're doing there with Eric Bieniemy. I think like they're proving that they can put up points where they didn't before, and I really like that, but I want to see it a little bit more. Maybe there's a revival of Brian Robinson there. I don't know, but I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see on that, right?
Yeah, the Commanders have enough guys that like they have enough guys that you would think would do well, but then like it's maddening to have them on your fantasy team.
Right.
Like,
yep. It's heartbreaking.
As somebody that has McLaughlin currently on their fantasy team, it's maddening. Like, it's just maddening.
Yeah. It's that's a tough one. So,
man.
All right. So we'll cover some great individual performances that we saw. DeAndre Swift on Thursday night, 28 carries, 171 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he from doing nothing in week 1 to doing that, he looked very, very good. Very good.
We did touch on this when we covered this game, was that the Eagles ran for, I think, just a shade under 300 yards on the Vikings. Yeah. Like, if you're going to run the ball with that amount of success, Jalen Hurts doesn't need to do anything. Like, respectfully.
And they've got the line that can run the ball too. So, also from that game, Kirk Cousins, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like, I feel like he's kind of got to make it, right?
To quote Kirk Cousins, I did like that. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I did.
You like that?
But no.
Yeah.
He played well. Like, but again, in Kirk Cousins fashion, when it really mattered,
They weren't able to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you kind of knew that he was going to get them back into this game, but you knew realistically he wasn't going to win this game for him.
Right.
Nah.
I'm still holding out hope. I'm a big Cousins fan, so I really think, I want to see him do well. I really do.
Me too.
All right. So also Bill Belichick with the flag throw. Pretty legit, right? Great performance with that. I mean, that was like a spoiled toddler just throwing their toys on the ground. Like, it was amazing.
That might have been the best throw the Patriots had all day.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Oh, wait. And I'm not. I'm not wrong.
I don't think you are, right? Like, it's
Man.
kind of crazy. I know we got two more here. So we had Puka Nacua, right? 15 receptions on 147 yards. Like, who is this dude, right? Like, just burst onto the fantasy scene. He's been absolutely killing it in Cooper Kupp's absence, right?
Well, what's wild is that, like, if Cooper Kupp can get healthy, like, he's going to get even more he's going to get more throws his way. Mm-hmm. Like, what's wild, he's doing this, and he's the best receiver on that team by a mile.
Right.
Like, it's him and a bunch of dudes. Like, right.
Well, and it shows also, even if you have an AARP card, you can still perform in the NFL. Mike Evans with 6 receptions, 171 yards, and a touchdown, looking like his former self, right? Like, it was like, oh, Baker, just throw it to the guy that's 6'5". Like, he's going to come down with it. And Tampa Bay looked decent, man.
And it's a contract year for him too,
yes.
Which means, like, I think he's just going to keep putting up insane numbers, and, like, it helps. Like, it's really, you said it. It helps when you have a guy that's 6'5" that you can just throw it up to,
right,
and hope for the best. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll be back next week with some more great individual performances. But we got the minivan segment here. Two things that I think are that we want to talk about that are just on our minds with this. They just make us feel uncomfortable. The first was Geno Smith on 3rd and 18. I mean, there was this one meme that they had after the Patriots Super Bowl against Seattle that had Pete Carroll working at a Starbucks. And he was like, he's reaching out with the coffee out the window, and he's like, do you want me to hand this to you or step back 10 yards and throw it for no fucking reason? And, like, that's, like, with this, it could be Geno Smith, same Seattle team, right, with Pete Carroll. Like, do you want me to throw this out of bounds, or do you just want me to run back 20 yards and take a sack for no reason, right? Like, it just, for me, like, what are you doing, dude?
And it should, like, that helps Detroit ultimately, because Detroit was able to tie the game, and just throw the ball out of bounds. Like, just throw it. Like, just throw it out of bounds. Like, him taking that sack was bananas. Just bananas.
I thought maybe there was, like, a flag I couldn't see on the field, so that's why he thought he had, like, a free play or something to kind of do what he wanted. I can't understand the thought process of what he did on that play. I just can't.
I can't either. It was wild because he just kept going backwards, and you're like, okay, he's got to get rid of it. And then briefly this thought flashed into my brain, like, is he going to take a safety? Like, I know that's a possibility, but, like, he ran so far back the other way. Like, it just insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Really was. The second one we had here, Bears, you look at the Chicago Bears and what a dumpster fire they are, right? Like, supposed to be the most improved team this year in the NFL. Justin Fields, like, his processor just needs to be replaced, right? Like an old computer. Like, this guy, I just don't know. Like, he was one of my guys this year. I really thought, like, he had gotten through and improved on a lot of those quarterback mechanics. But, like, even looking back on Sunday and stuff, like, holding the ball, like 5 sacks. The way he holds the ball, like, I understand lines need to block. I get that piece of it. But taking 4.9 seconds, 5.7 seconds to throw the ball, you can't do that. You're not going to win football games doing that. You need to go through your progressions, right? Like, Tua drops back 1, 2, 3, and then throws the ball, right? Like, he knows he's got to get the ball out, right? Like, it just, I don't know. It kills me to watch that. It's painful watching him right now.
And it's not like the Bears don't have decent receivers for the first time ever. Like they have Claypool, they have Moore, like they have some guys that he can throw to, but like I'm gonna say two things. One, I just don't think he's comfortable in the offense.
Yeah.
It just looks like he just can't process things. Like you said, I think that he's just not comfortable in the offense and he doesn't know it forwards and backwards like he should. And then the second part of this, and I've been saying this for a while, I don't think Justin Fields is a good player. Like, I don't think he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, sure, the guy can run, and that's great, but like when that's getting taken away,
yeah. But he didn't do that in
it.
college. Like when he got drafted, this dude was a throwing quarterback. He didn't really start running effectively until he got to the NFL. Like we're like the offensive coordinator doesn't look at that and say like, "Oh man, like maybe
counter argument state."
What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, he was a great passer at Ohio State, but look at the dudes he was throwing to.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, like I would think you'd go back to Ryan Day and be like, all right, what did you guys have for plays that you were putting together to like help this guy? Because right now, like he looks like he's struggling. And I mean, it looks even worse when you have guys like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud stepping in. They were in college last year, right? Like not even last year, like earlier this year, they were playing college football, like, and now you see them playing on an NFL field and making plays. Stroud threw for 380 yards. He led the league this week. Like Bryce Young looks like he has a pretty good grasp of how to play quarterback, right? Like I don't know for Justin Fields. Like it seems like he's gotten worse since last year, and that's scary.
Yeah, it's insane because the Bears have the number 1 pick and they traded it, and I personally don't think they should have traded it. I think they could have gotten somebody really good at 1, and it's just concerning to me how much he's regressed this year. And I know it's only 2 weeks, but like, if I'm the Bears, like I have to really start to wonder if like this is the guy.
Is this guy our quarterback, right?
And if he's not the guy, like
where do we go?
Maybe you start thinking about Caleb Williams, like,
or trying to shop him, right? Like maybe send him to Arizona. I don't know, right? Like
Dallas will trade for him. It's fine.
Yeah,
Dallas will trade for him.
Jerry Jones will gladly take him in. So I don't know. Just very frustrating.
There'll be a team that has Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields. They'll be fine.
Yep.
They'll be fine.
They'll run 3 QBs on the field at once. No big deal. We got it. So
yeah, it's all good.
Oh man. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's dive into the Thursday night football game. We got Giants at 49ers. So the Giants playing on the short week there, coming off getting absolutely smoked by Dallas, then being down 28-0, coming back against Arizona, stay on the West Coast. Now they got to go up to San Francisco where they're going to get their teeth kicked in. San Francisco's getting 10.5. The over-under's 45. Like, what do you got for this game?
The Giants are going to get smashed because if they're going to, and I said this earlier, if they're going to play the game of, it's going to take us a half to like get warmed up and like fuck around with this team. Like, excuse my language again, but they're going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Like with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Give me the board. Let me see it. The more, yeah, right.
Like, the board is just this.
It's going to be, they say up and to the right. Yeah. So it's, it's, I just, honestly, I think it's going to be very interesting. Daniel Jones needs to be superb in order for them to have a chance. And he's going to have to put this Giants team on his back. I mean, for them to have any success this year until Saquon gets back, dude, if it's 3-4 weeks, like you drop 3 or 4 games, lose 3 or 4 games, your season is very, very different. It's so difficult to come back from that. So he's really got to be able to get it done. But I just don't know if this is the week I have them getting absolutely crushed this week.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. I think the one thing that just concerned me with Thursday night games is I don't think San Francisco is going to score as many points just because I think coming off a short week like that, I think it's going to be a little bit of a sloppy game for the San Francisco offense, but I think defensively, like they're just like Daniel Jones is just going to get smashed.
Yeah, they're
Like,
coming for him, right? Like he's going to be
yeah,
running for his life. I just, I really think it comes back to Dayball too. Like he's a good coach. They need to be coached up here. How's Matt Breida going to do in the absence of Barkley? Like, those are some of the things that I got running through my mind. But it takes a lot out of you when you have a big comeback win like that, and then to turn around real quick and have to play on a short week is just not. That's not conducive for. It's not a recipe for success, right? So,
yeah, no, it's not. And I think too with San Francisco, like they just have too many weapons. They do. Like they just like Brock Purdy just has everything at his disposal, and it just makes his job so easy.
yeah.
Like they have a good line. Like they have McCaffrey, they have Ayuk, they have Debo. Like they have Kittle. Kittle has like been non-existent up to this point. So like
It's his
any
turn.
production they can get from him,
Yeah.
great.
It's his turn this week. CMC should have a monster game. Kittle's going to be lights out too. Ayuk's battling the shoulder injury that he had last week. That didn't look good. Maybe Debo gets involved as well. But Purdy, the thing I really like about him, man, is like you've got all these star quarterbacks that are failing to live up to expectations, and no one's talking about Mr. Irrelevant, right? Like this dude just keeps coming, showing up, keeps winning games, keeps chugging along, and like silently is going under the radar, right? Like you're not hearing sound bites from him, none of that. This dude is just showing up every week. Kyle Shanahan is coaching him up, and he's doing well. So I really think it's great for the 49ers, right? Like
I think
it really is.
I think it was telling with San Francisco when they traded Lance that they were like they had seen enough in Purdy that they were like, you know what, this is our guy.
Yeah,
this is our guy, and we think and I think they can actually have a real shot at a Super Bowl with him. Like, because you look at it last year, that NFC title game, if he doesn't get hurt, that game was going to be, I thought, was going to be an incredible game that we didn't get to see.
Yeah.
And they have all the weapons, and and now Purdy has the playoff experience, so you don't have to worry about that with him. And he's shown enough, especially in close games, like, God gets it done.
Yeah, he
like,
does.
And I think this is going to be a big game for him. And I think San Francisco is a really good team this year. And if you're a really good team, these are games that you have to win. Right. That you're supposed to win, and you should win.
Yeah. The only real concern that I have, and it's very minor, is just their defense, right? Like they've got a stellar matchup in this one, right? Like and it's almost like they can smell blood. Teams with good defenses, they're like, they're calling up Dallas this week. They're like, oh, thanks for, softening them up for us, because now they're going to come in, and Fred Warner, Bosa, all these guys are going to lay the hammer down, right? And it just, my only concern was that, they only had one sack on Stafford last week. Yeah, they had the 2 picks and stuff, but, I expected a little more in the sack department from San Francisco. Maybe a few less points given up.
I'm actually not that worried about it. Because I think the Rams in the 2 weeks so far have shown like they're actually not bad.
Yeah.
They're not a bad team. And I think too, Stafford that dude's a vet, man. Like he is a wily quarterback, and like he has played enough good defenses to know like what he knows. He has to get rid of the ball. He has to.
He couldn't relate to the younger guys, remember? Like,
yeah.
Such BS here and that, right? Like, and he goes out and just lights it up in 2 weeks. Like, it's a joke, man. His line's playing out of control too.
And I think too, like these two teams, the 49ers and the Rams, like historically, they always play close games. They're always real tight, down to the wire, and this was no different. And like I said, I'm not really worried about San Francisco's defense. Like, you can't keep putting up the numbers they put up against Pittsburgh every week. That's just not feasible.
Yeah.
And you said it, the Rams offensive line is protecting Stafford.
Yeah.
Like, and that line's pretty decent. So.
Yeah. What do you have for a score of this game? How do you think it's ending up?
I think it's going to be, I think the 49ers are going to win 31-10. Okay. Like, I don't see a lot with Daniel Jones. I think they'll score on him, but I think it's going to be Daniel Jones running a lot.
Yeah. Because
what's going to happen is they're going to bring the pressure, and he's just going to have to bail. And I think he's going to get a lot of yards on the ground. And I think it'd be a game where I wouldn't be shocked if Jones has like 70 yards rushing.
Yeah. I went 38-13 San Fran. I think they're gonna lay it on a little thicker, but you're right. The Giants aren't gonna be able to do much against this team, and I just think, right now this might be the Niners' year, right? Like they look already in midseason form right now. So
right.
All right. Well, let's move on to some fantasy and stuff before we wrap up here. Fantasy MVPs of the week. I think you got to go with Puka Nacua, right? Like this dude's got 35 targets for 2 weeks. He's looking to try to be a fantasy MVP. I was gonna say, have you seen Cooper Kupp anywhere?
No. Can you tell me that I have not seen the both of them in the same time.
Yeah.
So like maybe he's just Cooper Kupp in disguise.
Okay, so maybe. Hot take here. This is Cooper Kupp. He didn't want to coming back too soon would surprise people. He literally he took on the skin of somebody else and he renamed himself Puka Nacua, and that's exactly what he's doing. People just haven't caught on yet. So it's it's at least that's my take on it, right? Kirk Cousins, obviously, we talked about him before. Like he's doing his part. He didn't quite do enough, but like absolutely killed it in terms of yards and passing touchdowns. And Pittsburgh defense, right? Like they absolutely murdered it this week. Like what, two touchdowns, a pick, 3 fumble recoveries, 6 sacks. Like, dude, this is a team that really is. Mike Tomlin must have been so proud leaving that night, like just being like, yeah, the defense killed it, right? Like, dude, they just played so well.
And that defense is going to be the reason if Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs, it's only because of that defense.
Yeah.
Like that defense is going to have to carry them.
Right.
So.
All right. So some fantasy duds of the week that we've got here. We've got Trevor Lawrence, which he just didn't play well, right? Like they didn't play to their strengths there. I put Breece Hall here just because, and it's a damn shame, man, because it's not even his fault. He was given no carries, man. Like he wasn't even able to do. He's like, bro, help me help you, and he couldn't do it. Like they wouldn't give him the chance to do it. So it just for me, like it kills me to see that. Also, like, you look at some of the star receivers, this was the week to be a dud for them. AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, they just, all of them, just pitiful.
Well, I was going to say, when I saw the fantasy duds of the week that you had sent over, I was just going to add my fantasy dud of the week was just going to be the entire Cincinnati Bengals wide receiving core.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, well, Higgins did well. I mean, Higgins had a good day, but again, they as a team need to play much better. They need to play much better, right? Like, it just, I don't know. For me, I want to get back to seeing like the Joe Burrow and the Bengals that we're used to seeing, because that's fun football to watch. It really is. So, all right. So some waiver wire ads that were kind of hot. Obviously, Jerome Ford, sad to see the departure of Nick Chubb, but he's going to be the go-to guy there moving in Cleveland. You got Matt Breida in replacement of Barkley there in New York. He's definitely going to be the go-to guy. Zach Moss looks like he's the dude now in Indy, right? Like
weird. That's so weird.
Very, very strange. I don't know how to feel about that. And just, but he's the dude. You got Josh Reynolds, which, the receiver from Detroit, he's actually been playing pretty well. And if Amon-Ra's out, he's a guy to definitely watch because he's going to be in there. Last guy, Tank Dell, right? Like Tank Dell, 10 targets, like little mini me. Like he's awesome, man. I love seeing him play. Very fun to watch. And he's got the trust of Stroud, which is nice. Like you could tell they've got good rapport together.
So unfortunately for me, I had Jerome Ford and I dropped him before this week because I was like, well, I need to pick up some guys, and he's the backup for Cleveland. He's not going to really see the field anyway.
Yeah.
Boy.
The things that don't leave you with a Chubb, right?
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Woof.
So definitely some good waiver wire ads there. Be on the lookout for those in your leagues and stuff. Moving on to Guillotine League that we have. We've got our first chop. So how did you do this week, Al?
I did surprisingly well with not having Eckler or Jones. I'm gonna be honest with you. I got the two replacements I picked up for them pretty much like I think 3 points total, and then I needed to a flex spot, so I picked up Hunter Renfrow, thinking, oh maybe all duds, all duds. Like, and I still did pretty well because I'd like to thank our Lord and Savior, the Dallas Cowboys defense, for again carrying me. Also, big shout outs to TJ Hawkinson and Devonta Smith, who between the three of them, it was great.
Absolute dogs there. Yeah, it was really good. I was worried for you, but I'm glad that it went well. In regards to the Guillotine League, like I mentioned, this is the first week that we're chopping somebody. So it's kind of interesting. There's nothing worse than waiting all day for your impending doom. And for a few of the teams that were there last night, I know some of them were waiting there pretty nervous to see, like, okay, how are these games finishing? Is it going to be my team that gets chopped? We had about 5 or 6 teams that were on the verge of being the team that got chopped. Unfortunately, it was Crystal's rad team that fell victim to the guillotine.
Crystal's rad team, not rad, turns out.
Yep, she not too rad, right? Not rad enough. She ended up scoring 87 points, and it was really tough, right? Like, when she drafted, there was just concern, right? Because like she drafted Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor, and both of them, there was concern about them not playing. And I think that's kind of like a recipe for disaster in Guillotine, right? So both of them are hitting the waiver wire. You've got other people, Dameon Pierce, 49ers defense, Anthony Richardson. Like, there's some value along the league there, but I just wanted to at least say we really appreciate her joining the league. We'd love to have her back next year, but after this week, unfortunately, she can fuck off. So and obviously next week
it could be us next week, though.
It could be us next week, right? So make sure you guys definitely tune in, because it could be Al or I next week, and we're gonna get the chance to tell each other the same thing if that ends up happening. So before we go, though, we've got some very exciting fantasy news kind of in the other sport. Am I right?
Yeah, fantasy. Yeah, so my fantasy baseball league, I made it to the championship game, or championship week. It's a 2-week matchup. I'm trying to win my 9th in a row. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank the Lord and Savior of Matt Olson, who hit approximately 648 home runs in the last 2 weeks. So big shout out to that.
Yeah. Really happy to hear that for you, because I know the odds were stacked against you, right? But you had a little bit of luck from the other team, right?
Yeah. So my one of my best friends in the world, Kristen, all season she beat me 3 times. We played each other 3 times. She beat me all 3 times. She had Shohei Ohtani and Ronald Acuna, and in that 2-week matchup that we had in the playoffs, Ohtani got hurt and is done for the year, and Acuna had a weird hamstring thing. He was day to day for like about a week, and that's all she wrote, man.
Yeah, that was enough there.
Fantasy is a cruel mistress.
Yeah,
man, and it really is.
Well, listen, we are definitely wishing you the best. We want you to bring it home. We want it to be a decade of dominance. So very excited for you for that. We are going to be back dropping again on Friday, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be dropping again Friday, but thank everyone for watching again. We really appreciate it. A bunch of people have actually reached out to us and provided good constructive feedback, so we're looking to implement some of that within the next few weeks as we get better at this. But if there's something you want to discuss going forward, definitely drop a comment, and we'll continue making tweaks, upgrades, everything like that. If you do have a question and want to reach out to us, email us at thepulsewa@gmail.com. You can find us here on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitter or X at Willie Creamin FF. So thank you guys so much. Definitely appreciate it, and we love being a part of the Pulse. We really do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Al.
man. Willie, this was really good, and I love you, man. And let's do it again on Friday.
Absolutely. See you soon, bro. Take care.
See you soon.